All right, guys, we are back. Hope you had a great weekend. Let's dive into Bitcoin. I've got 9 cryptocurrencies to get through. We're looking at the cycle low. Is that in yet because of the pump that we've seen over the last few days? And the higher low that's been forming on strong altcoins, your leaders for the cycle, compared to the laggards. So I'm going to compare those after the Bitcoin analysis. We've got traditional markets to get through as they had a pretty strong close at the end of last week. And of course, that all ties into our macro analysis, looking at how the bull market is continuing on. Meanwhile, there are corrections within that bull market. So you're back with myself here, Jason Pizzino, your home of macro cycle analysis. Thanks again for your support. The no-nonsense titles and thumbnails are, I guess, doing their trick. You're smashing up the like button, getting us close to 4,000 likes a video. Some views have dropped off, but I guess that is just all part and parcel of where we sit in the current cycle. You don't get the same sort of engagement as what we do at the peak. So I hope we're all using that to our advantage. Some good times to be getting in that sort of 50 to 60K region for Bitcoin. I've got plenty of, or 2 particular price targets to look at in today's video. So without further ado, let's crack on here. Lots to get through. The US stock markets had a very good close at the end of last week, breaking above their previous top and also the 50% level. So let's get this little short-term one out of the way for the moment. That is a good start. It doesn't mean that we're there yet because it's only one day. You typically want to see about 2 to 3 days closing above resistance levels. And for the S&P 500, so far it's 1. We'll see how we go by the middle of this week. So around Wednesday to see if we can get around 3 closes above 5150. The NASDAQ has also done similar readings here, similar patterns, breaking above the previous resistance. A nice daily close there, a little stronger than the S&P 500. Nonetheless, it's pretty much going through that pattern of the correction, higher low, and now trying to break past resistance to establish a new higher low base. All part of the mega bull market, the everything bull market, as we've been covering here for since the lows there, October 2022. If you guys have been around on the channel since these bottoms, I've gone over that, why that was the reason, why all of those negative times were a fantastic entry opportunity. So in terms of where it sits, the strength there, we're down 8.5%, now roughly about 4% down from the all-time high. So again, looking at the S&P, it's been that so far single-digit correction. That's typically what we see in bull markets. There are the occasion of a double-digit correction from the top to that low point. They don't happen all that often, and it usually catches a lot of people off guard because when the market starts to fall, they all hope for lower prices. And typically those lower prices don't show up, and then they start chasing their tail again when the market begins to rise. So ideally, I'd want to see this thing back above around 5,200 points to really start to consolidate the low being in. The reason for that is you've got lows here, so these little swing bottoms. There were more swing bottoms on the way up to that final peak, and should it get above that and consolidate? Well, it's not guaranteed, as no one knows what happens on the black side of the chart, the right-hand side here. However, that would be a pretty strong case that this is the low, and the stock markets have seen their lows for this particular pullback, your April 19th low. Same deal, as I said, for the NASDAQ as well, once that shows up. So we're at 18,000 points here for the NASDAQ. Again, pretty good looking chart. The Dow Jones also looking similar here. You got the higher lows forming, the breakout, but it's just underneath that 50% level at 38,900. So overall, everything's moving the way it should in the stock markets. We're not seeing any significant breakdowns. There's always going to be 2 sides to the story. I don't need to get into any arguments here that people are expecting bigger breakdowns this year in 2024. Again, doesn't seem like it's likely at this stage. Pretty interesting data here. Quick recap on this one. This bull market is still quite young. So if you want to upset a bear, plenty of them still out there. Not as many as there was in 2022, mind you. Some people still think there are. I don't get the how they see that. The fear in 22 and first half of 2023, out of this world. It was just fear nonstop, which is almost always, the best time to be getting into the market. It's such a crowded trade. I love that saying. It was such a crowded trade last year of shorts, and the market put in a mega higher low. So what we can see now from the bull market is they typically last longer than many people anticipate because they've still got this memory that the market is going to collapse. Tell them this. So you want to upset a bear, tell them this. This bull market is extremely young, not even 19 months old yet. Should it end now, this would be the quickest and weakest bull ever. It's possible. I don't think it's going to happen from the data that I've presented here to you, for months and years now. But again, at the end of the day, everyone do what you do and trade how you want to trade. That's how that's how these markets are made up. The average bull lasts nearly 5 years and gains more than 150%. This one is 43% and just over 18 months old. So pretty startling evidence here going back to the 1950s. At the end of the day, you guys do you. I want to be on the side of my own analysis and my own data because that's how I'm trading my own money. The election year still looking relatively good. We've covered this many, many times. Just looking at that cycle progressing through. We're into the first week of May now, so May 6th, and you can see from these readings, from these lines here, that we'll start to climb out of this probably in June. When I say climb out of it, I'm looking at the stock markets here. For some reason, I see comments from people thinking this is Bitcoin. This is the stock market. It says it right there, S&P 500. So that's what I'm looking at with the stock markets for the US. They've got a little bit to go. Maybe in the next month or late this month, would start to climb into new all-time highs. We'll have to wait and see whether we get a rejection here, form a higher low again, and start to climb higher, okay? End of the day, the macro looking like we're going to new all-time highs in 2024. That's what I'm most confident in, not saying that you have to be as well. US dollar has had another day down, so it ended the week lower last week. If you look on the daily chart, relatively weak, but it's still holding up above the previous resistance. So potential support here at 104.8. US dollar had a much weaker week than it has done for quite some time. That volume is very, very high compared to anything in this entire, it's not necessarily accumulation, but consolidation. So this period of the last year and a few months, this has been the highest weekly volume, and it even beats all the bears and all the bull weeks. So all the down weeks and all the up weeks. It's the highest week since this final collapse here. Is it over yet? No, we need to see a break of the low here and this low, and then a close underneath those tops. That would probably bring a little more ease to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as well, because you're starting to see an ease on the US dollar. So keep a very close eye on this chart. That's been the first little sign here, but it could find some strength here, test it one more time. Lot longer to go with this one here with the US dollar. So over to Bitcoin and cryptos. Here are our net ETF flows. We had the biggest outflow for ETFs, nearly 10,000 for May 1st. Essentially, I believe that was a low. We'll get to that in a minute. And then by Friday, we had one of the biggest days. Not the biggest day, you got a lot of big days on that move up, but the biggest day since the all-time highs. So I guess that's a positive there. But I don't use this. You guys know that. Follow the charts, because this essentially tells you, well, you had the biggest day of outflows. Let's have a look at the volume here on the daily chart here at that low point. So how do you want to use that in your trading? Up to you. You got the biggest outflows at the bottom. Doesn't that tell you, oh, maybe things are going to get worse? And they didn't. So just follow a chart. And by following a chart, let's take a look at the 50% levels and resistance levels now for Bitcoin on the short term. Last week, we were looking right here at 62K. So that's 61.9, 62K as a possible resistance level. Now, the beauty with the 50%, so this is Gann analysis. The 50% level does not mean that it has to hit resistance and get rejected. There's no 100%. If the market slices through 50% like it did on Friday, that typically suggests a lot of strength. Now, we've seen 3 daily closes above 50%. And so the 50% level, although it can be support and resistance a lot of the time in the market, if you get that signal that it slices through, that can be a pretty good sign. You can add that to your plan that we might see further upside. So that now that you've got this understanding of strength and weakness, a slice through that resistance, pretty good signs for that strength now. So again, let's wait and see, because that's the short term. The short term slice through, you had a follow through. You had Saturday following up, you had Sunday's data following up, and early into Monday now, an hour in, and we're starting to see a little bit of a climb here. So not getting too excited there, because when we look to the longer term time frame, so it's like trying to get the wheels in motion here. I like to look at sports analogies. You're not going to go from waking up to sprinting or doing some sort of massive workout without warming up. And so the smaller movements in the market are the warm up. So we got the warm up here. So far looking good. The warm up's working out for the bulls at least. We're seeing that movement to the upside. The break is 62K. Now we're testing the next 50% level. That's at 64,600. So roughly around this $65,000. You can see how many times it's been support and then resistance along the way. A lot of bars in here trying to test that and then get rejected. So a close above those levels would then take us to the all-time high, which if this is the low bottom in May, then that would be a pretty good start to the consolidation to then get to those higher prices. So far, we looked at a quarter one correction. So we've got that quarter one correction. Now we're into quarter two, potential low forming for this correction, which would then take us out into quarter three, potentially a break of all-time highs. That could come earlier. Obviously, just wait and see. We don't need to be wedded to that scenario that it has to happen in quarter three. We just want to look at what's going on with the price chart here, because at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just using the strength and the weakness on the chart, following the support and resistance, and reading it like a book. That works for me. So hopefully you're also learning something from that. If you are, smash it up. Let's go. 4,000 likes. Let me know in the comment section how you are using this analysis. Okay, so far we're seeing some signs of strength in the short term. That is yet to follow through in the medium term. And to get to that medium term, we need that break above 65K or 65.2K, and then the 67K because they were the previous tops. That would be pretty solid consolidation level for Bitcoin to then break to those all-time highs. So is the low in? It's looking okay for that. There's no longer term confirmation. We're looking for a longer term low, therefore you need longer term confirmation. Pretty straightforward. So for that longer term confirmation, we're looking at May or June for this bottom, just looking at the data that we had gone through in great detail in Friday's video. So a good 10-15 minutes going through all of that data, which I won't repeat here. But essentially, May, June has been a reasonable time for a turn. May has not had a turn, but June has had 4 turns, so 4 monthly swing bottoms. Even last year had a June turn. 2022 had a significant June turn as well. Do we get it again in 2024 or it comes to May? We'll wait and see. We've had about 48 days down now. So it's all lining up relatively well, in my opinion, for a quarter two turn, which could then see some consolidation before we break to fresh highs. I just want to go back to this one quickly because we can look out to June and July. And we've seen it many times before, the market get excited and then depressed, and then they sort of switch between you're right, you're wrong, all this sort of BS. I'm just looking at this level here, sort of 69,000. There's your 69,000, nice simple line there. What if we're to run up, test that, come back down, put in a higher low that forms in June? So not breaking this low here, but just a higher low, and then start to work its way higher again. That could be a possibility. We could just run straight up, hold above these levels, and then break out sooner. I'm looking at all of these scenarios because at the end of the day, I don't know what happens on the black side, but I'm just keeping my eye on potential patterns that could form, that could all be bullish. The only difference here is in terms of the speed to break to a new all-time high. If you've got your position, you don't need to worry. It's just, I don't know, fun to have a look at how we can anticipate the next market movements. So that's for BTC, which would then lead me over to altcoins. So I want to get to altcoins because many have been putting in higher lows and they look like they want to break to new fresh prices sooner rather than later. Now, I want to come back to this data here as well, but I've said altcoins, we've got 9 to get through. Here is our altcoin market cap, all-time high, the cycle high for now, all-time high is way back here. This is the total cryptocurrency market cap without Bitcoin, ETH, and stablecoins. It's an exclusive indicator that we put together at TIA. Link to that is in the video description. It's my shield for this video. And if you do want to get that free report, it's coming out in 36 hours. Again, link to that is right down here. Plenty to have a look at. I'll get back into this now. The higher low for altcoins seems to be forming. There you go, right there, 19th of April. I posted about that because we could see many altcoins looking like they wanted to put in higher lows. Unfortunately, some people have got into the crappier ones, but we want to try and get out of that. I want to show you these charts in a moment, and I'm not going to name any names. You can do the reading for yourself, but I'm not going to name any names. Okay, so here is the higher low so far. Last week was a pretty decent week for the altcoin market cap. So far overall, in the macro sense, we've got high lows altogether, and 420 billion is still that support level for this market. In terms of the shorter term now, if we go to the 50% level from low to high, you can see that it's tested at week 1, week 2 here. We haven't got there yet. Maybe we'll get there this week to try and test 530 billion. I like that as a next confirming price target for the altcoin market cap to get to 530, 580 billion. That would probably be a good consolidating area, trading range to then push higher. So I think if you got there, that would be a safer level for altcoins. Many don't want to wait that long because you have to pay the price of altcoins going up to give you that confirmation that they're going to be strong. So with that in mind, this is still looking relatively healthy at the moment. Let's not name any names, but you can do the looking yourself because I just want to focus on the price chart. Again, focus on the price chart and those higher lows that have been forming. As we talked about from X, many strong altcoins look like they're putting in higher lows. In the case here of this altcoin that I'm not naming, there is your we had that collapse day, 12th and 13th of April. That for Bitcoin looked like these 2 days, these 2 days here. Bitcoin ended up putting in lower lows, but some of these altcoins did not. So I'm going to look at them on USD charts and on Bitcoin charts. Here are your your first dump to those lows, about a 58% drop. You got the higher low forming at the moment, and now it's coming back to test this other high that was put in through April, which broke those previous tops. So the 12th and the 13th, the market got back to that, tested those tops, put in another higher low, and now is coming back to try and test those tops. This could go on for weeks, maybe months. But the point of this is we want to see higher lows beginning to form and then consolidating above 50%, the same rules that I've talked about forever. Keep following that up. So not naming any names, here is one chart to have a look at, because at the end of the day, you didn't have any of this, you couldn't see this, and you couldn't see this. I'm pointing to the price and the name. You just want to look at the structure of the chart. So far that structure looks better, and you'll see the difference with the weaker stuff. This one also looking stronger at the moment. Higher lows forming, getting above 50% for now. Reasonable volume coming up. You can see it break and test that top again of the 12th of April. So good signs there for this particular chart. Not naming any names. Yep, I'm going through it again. There's another option. Another option here. This one looks weaker, but still holding above 50%. You can see these were the 12th and the 13th dates, and it broke lower. So that is a weaker position. However, overall, it's still holding above 50%, just has more work to do than the other two. So we're starting, I think I've got some other strong ones here, but it's starting to look slightly weaker in this sense. You can see that that's lower than where this one was. You can see that was a higher low for the same dates in that same period. This one here now is against a Bitcoin chart, which would mean that it might be even stronger moving forward. However, if you do zoom out, then it's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do, plenty of highs from the previous cycle. However, doesn't matter. You've got some higher lows here. It just might not be as, it might not put in as bigger gains as something that doesn't have all of this previous data. This is like all previous baggage of a relationship that people in 2021 and 2022 had with this coin. This is relationship baggage, and some of them just will sell out when it gets to these previous levels. Whereas with some other coins, and I'm not suggesting this one here, I'm just looking at the chart, so forget that. If I can block that for you, block this here. If you had a chart like this, then there's less previous baggage. So something that hasn't been through the mixes of so many partners. How's that? How's that one for the guys? Anyway, looking further forward, another one here that has done pretty well and has broken past a lot of the previous baggage of previous cycles here. So you've got some higher lows forming on those dates that we have covered, breaking past those levels. And these are the previous cycles here. There's 2021 down to 2022 and breaking past these levels here. So less baggage to get through, not looking too bad. This one's got a lot of baggage, a lot of baggage from the previous old all-time high. It's been hit it and quit it many times before, but many are still married to this coin for other reasons. It could still do it. It's got some slight higher lows here, but it's got a bit of work to do and plenty of work to the upside. So it can still go up. It probably will still go up. Just has a lot of hard work to do. This one's a fresh one for this cycle. So not as many have taken this one out to the dance. However, it doesn't look as strong here. So it has been able to get back to that 12th and 13th date with some strong volume at these lows, but it's just struggling here. If this is able to hold, that's going to be a stronger coin. But if it breaks down from this level, so that's at about 15,000 Satoshis, because there should be another zero there, then that's not going to look too great because it's just lining up to be a bit weaker there. We're getting further into the weaker stuff. There is that low of the 12th and the 13th, and this has just continued to trend down. There's going to be all sorts of fundamental reasons for this and fundamental reasons why they should be stronger. I honestly don't care. The point being is the chart is going to tell you the story. The story at the moment is much weaker. It's just so clear when you look at the chart. Let's look at the chart of something stronger here. You've got higher lows forming and it's breaking through now. Meanwhile, this other chart is still heading down. Doesn't mean it can't come back later, have a big change of heart and things go great. But for now, with all the data we have, this is still weaker than those other charts. And finally, something that caught our heart last week and for whatever reason, gave it all back. It's another chart right here. So it attempted it. It got back to this 12th and the 13th date. You can see how all these are lining up with these altcoin charts. They get back to this 12th and 13th date. They test them, and then they start to come back to test the demand in the market. So the supplies come in and pushed it back down. So the next test is, will that demand come back when it tests these lower prices? It's just a supply demand game, and all we're trying to do is just read this chart. Now, if there is going to be some demand come back for this whatever, then we should start to see this chart go up. But as the history has shown for this chart, there's not a lot of love for this, despite the amount of love that many online like to give it. So I guess the insiders don't give it love and they just keep dumping on all of the clueless, I don't know, retail that keeps buying up this dog shit. Now, from some of the bad, let's have a look at some of the more loved big name cryptos for this cycle. And at the moment, got a higher low or an equal low forming here for this one against its USD chart. And now it is testing higher prices again. Let's put on some lines, and you've got a break above 50%. You are still underneath the 12th and the 13th. So it's got a bit of work to do here against the US dollar chart. However, on its BTC chart, not looking so bad compared to some of the altcoins that we have looked at. So you've got some of the strong stuff, and it is getting back towards this 12th and 13th date where that real big collapse happened. Now, it put in a higher low when Bitcoin put in a lower low. So that's another good sign there. And a nice break above 240,000 up to this top here around 250,000 would be ideal. 50% right at 260,000. Okay, so that's a look at those higher lows forming above the 50% of the range from the low to the top. So still healthy. Some higher lows are forming now. And ideally, as I said, around above 240 would be that safer entry point. It's at a higher price, so that's the price you pay for the confirmation of strength. Links in the video description, guys. Thanks again. Smashing up the likes, sharing it with friends. I'll see you on X or maybe out in the surf. So today I managed to squeeze in 10 altcoins for you. Is that Bitcoin cycle low in? So far, so good. Some pretty good early signs at the moment, especially breaking past 62,500 with a few days close above that. You can see the price resistance levels above that we've covered now, around 65 and 69K are going to be the big ones to watch over the coming days. Lows for altcoins, well, enough said. The analysis, the data shows that those higher lows are forming. Will they hold? That's the big question now. Stay tuned to the channel, and I'll be back here on the next video. Till then, take care and peace out.